Entre los fallecidos se identificó a Michelle Ortega Casanova.
Tonight, the Cuban government has released the names of those involved after a deadly confrontation in Cuban waters. This comes after Cuban officials said that a Florida-registered boat violated their waters this morning, triggering an armed confrontation with Cuban border guard troops. 4 people on the vessel were killed and at least 6 people were hurt. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jawan Strader. We have live team coverage for you tonight. NBC6's Lorena Inclan joins us in the Keys with the latest developments. But we start with NBC6's Valerie Ryan, who joins us in Little Havana with more from U.S. officials. Valerie.
Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he will not be speculating without evidence, but the Department of Homeland Security and the Coast Guard are now involved. And Rubio is also saying that the U.S. Embassy is on the ground in Havana investigating as we speak.
A situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more.
Cuban officials say Wednesday a Florida-registered boat entered what they call prohibited waters, 1 nautical mile northeast of El Pino Channel in Cayos Falcones. Cuba's Interior Ministry says its vessel approached the boat to ask for identification. Authorities claim someone on the U.S. boat opened fire, injuring the commander of the Cuban vessel. They say Cuban officers then fired back.
Suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time. But we're going to find out. We're not going to base our conclusions on what they've told us.
Cuban officials say 4 people were killed, 6 others were injured and taken into custody. The Cuban government claims all the people involved are Cubans living in the United States.
We have our embassy on the ground in Havana working this as we speak, asking for access to the people that were on those vessels, if they were American citizens or permanent residents.
Rubio did confirm the boat was not affiliated with the U.S. government. Ramon Saul Sanchez, president of the Democracy Movement, says there are several reasons why the boat was near the island.
The first one, people going in there to try to retrieve their relatives from Cuba due to the dire economic and political situation that Cuba is now living under. Second, human trafficking. And the third issue could be Cuban exiles trying to do something to overthrow the Cuban regime.
And when we know, then we'll tell you, and we'll do what needs to be done about it, depending on what it is.
Again, United States officials have not confirmed any information that the Cuban government is claiming, but will continue to keep you updated as this story develops. We're live in Little Havana. Valerie Ryan, NBC6 News.
All right, Valerie, and our team coverage continues tonight with Lorena Inclan, who joins us in Key West with the latest developments. Lorena.
Well, it's important to know that much of the information that we have is coming from the Cuban Ministry of the Interior and Cuba's state-run media. The boat involved, according to Cuban authorities, is registered here in Florida, and the owner, according to what we've seen in public records, has a home here in the Keys, which is what brought us out here. We haven't been able to get in touch with him yet, but we now know the names that the Cuban officials are putting out there, saying that these were the people involved in this shootout. Cuba's state-run media is describing Wednesday's incident off its central coast as a terrorist plot by heavily armed U.S. residents. Tonight, in a press release issued by Cuban authorities, the names of those aboard a boat the regime says illegally entered Cuban waters, including 6 people the regime says are currently detained. But we spoke to a man who claims his name was listed, Roberto Ascorra Consuegra. Tells NBC6 he's not in Cuba, but rather here in the United States. Ascorra says he was surprised to see his name on an official press release. According to the Cuban government, a total of 10 people aboard a Florida-registered boat came within 1 nautical mile northeast of El Pino Channel in Cayo Falcones. When a Cuban border guard approached to ask for identification, the people aboard the boat opened fire, injuring a commander of the Cuban vessel. Cuban officials go on to say that 4, quote, aggressors were killed and 6 were wounded. According to public records, the man who owned the boat involved in the shootout with the Cuban military owns this home in Miami Lakes. A reporter from our station was outside the Miami Lakes home when two people who identified themselves as FBI agents approached the front door. That agent spoke with a family member through a doorbell camera. We have attempted to reach family members connected to this address and have not heard back yet. And we are still trying to get in touch with all the names that were released in that official press release from the Cuban government. And again, it's important to reiterate that much of this information is coming from the Cuban government itself. And the U.S., as Valerie mentioned, trying to confirm some of the details. We'll continue to work this story, and as soon as we get more information, we will let you know. For now, reporting live from Marathon, Lorena, Inclan, NBC 6 News.
And Lorena, U.S. Representative Carlos Jimenez released a statement on X earlier today that reads in part, quote, "I am calling for an immediate investigation into this massacre. The regime in Cuba must be relegated to the dustbin of history for its countless crimes against humanity," end quote. In response, Senator Rick Scott posted a statement on X that reads, quote, "We need a full investigation into this deeply concerning situation and to determine what happened. The communist Cuban regime must be held accountable." Meanwhile, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer posted a statement on social media that reads in part, quote, "The Cuban government cannot be trusted, and we will do everything in our power to hold these communists accountable." And be